are first-time founders or they're very early stage founders. And what I found in my work with them, and also in my work on advisory boards and within the tech community, was that people really get intimidated and overwhelmed by the idea of pitching, that pitching can be this thing that just for the most skilled professional, the most poised, amazing, experienced person, pitching can send them into a tailspin. And it's this very unique environment where you're putting your baby out into the world and you're letting people look at it and turn it around and criticize it and experience it. And it can be very, very stressful. And so what I thought was, it shouldn't be that way. It actually should be something that you love and that you look forward to, because every opportunity to talk about your business is an opportunity to learn something about it, even if you learn something negative. So you should really get comfortable talking about your business, and you should be excited to talk about your business. So what I wanted to do with the book was really create a set of tools and frameworks and ways to think about pitching that make it super easy and less intimidating, and then also fun, so that you are ready and able to tell a clear and compelling story about your company to anyone who's interested to talk to you. And at the end of the day, the whole point of a pitch really is just to get someone to ask you the next question or to lean in with some curiosity. It isn't the end all be all like some people have made it out to be. What it really is just this door opener, this way to get people engaged with what you're doing. And that's why I subtitled my book, Winning Money, Mentors, and More for Your Startup, because it's not just about pitching for money. As an entrepreneur, you're going to be pitching from day one and every day after, whether it's for partners or new employees or customers or money, you're going to be pitching. So you might as well get comfortable with it and really enjoy the process. So I'm going to share my screen now where my slides live and get started. I have built into my presentation several stops for questions along the way. So if you do have questions, throw them into the chat box, and Danielle will help me out with that at the various stopping points along the way. There are a bunch of areas that I'm going to cover, and I'm going to touch, lightly on most of them because there's not a lot of time today. But there's tons more detail in the book. There's lots of examples in the book. There's stories and examples of how you do things. There are exercises that make a lot of these things clearer and allow you to practice what I'm talking about. So lots more in the book if you happen to want to learn more after we talk today. So I'm going to talk about storytelling. I'm going to talk about unique value proposition. We're going to go into elevator pitches and investor pitches. And then some things around preparing to pitch. A lot of this entrepreneurship business is about relationships. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can use your pitch to build relationships and that will help you move forward. And then I want to touch really lightly on pitching online, because I know that's on a lot of people's minds, because it is the way we're doing it these days, and it's a little bit different, but equally fun, equally great opportunities to move your business forward, even if you're pitching online. So I'd like to start with a story, actually. What I learned in my research as I was doing the book and working on the book was I did all this research into the brain, and it turns out that our brains love stories. Stories are really easy to remember. Stories are emotional. They make us feel something. And stories actually put the brain into listening mode. So when your brain is hearing a story, it immediately goes into listening mode, which makes it open and eager to get information and kind of leaning in. When your brain is hearing facts and dry data and really logical information, your brain shifts into what they call evaluation mode. And evaluation mode is judgmental, and it's looking for errors. So ideally, you are going to tell your pitch in story form so that people are going to be more open to hearing what you have to say, really using that brain function to capture their attention and to capture their engagement versus, immediately hitting them with dry data and statistics and putting them in evaluation mode where they're kind of judging you versus just being open to what you have to say and the solution you've created for the world. And so I did a lot of research into storytelling, and it turns out that stories are just such a wonderful way to be memorable also. And that's an important thing when you're pitching, obviously, because not only do you want to be memorable to the person you're pitching to so that they, you know, might help you or come back to you later with offers to help, but they can also repeat that story in a shape or form to other people, which creates this ripple effect along with, you know, more and more people starting to hear about your company. And that is always a great thing. I always tell my entrepreneurs, you can never tell enough people about your startup. You know, trying to keep it quiet or be secretive about it really doesn't, it doesn't help you at all, actually. And I think, you know, sometimes people feel like they've got to protect their IP, when it isn't really something that's protectable at all. And the odds are you're better off just telling your story to as many people as possible and getting a lot of feedback and getting offers for help. So I'm going to show you the story of Emily Levy. And Emily was my student back in 2016. She was an undergrad at Babson, and Emily has chronic Lyme disease. And she came up with her company Mighty Well as a result of living with chronic Lyme disease. She has a PICC line in her arm, which is a plastic medical tubing that allows her to get IV antibiotics. And it was really horrible for her to have to be a college student with a PICC line hanging out of her arm. And at the time, her doctor told her that she should just put a cutoff tube sock around it and cover it up with a cutoff tube sock. Well, you can only imagine, even if you're not a teenage girl, how that went over for a young college student, you know, trying to be social and engage in her new college life. So Emily created Mighty Well, which the first product was these PICC line covers, which is the blue fabric that's over her arms. It's microreal, it's antimicrobial, it's sweat-proof, it's washable, and it's got all these really great properties that allow it to be an excellent and fashionable cover for your PICC line. And then they moved into this larger category. From there, they moved in this larger category of healthcare wearables, so things that you can wear that help people who have chronic illness, you know, cope better, feel better about themselves, make them feel empowered. So I'm going to show you Emily talking about her company in her pitch, and you'll really get a sense of what I mean. So here's Emily. Whoops, hold on. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Here's Emily.
Emily Levy, and this is my pitch. To all of you, I may look like your average college student, but since the 7th grade, I've been suffering from severe chronic Lyme disease and co-infections. My doctor decided to place a PICC line in my arm for long-term antibiotics treatment, and I had to do my treatment at my 8 a.m. finance class, and the cute hockey player next to me looked at me like I was a walking disease. I knew that there had to be a better way. Our first product is our PICC line cover that allows for patients to have ease of access and dignity while going through treatment. We believe that all patients deserve dignity and confidence while going through treatment because we're still people too. Visit our website, pickperfect.com, and share your story on our blog, Lyme into Lemonade.
Okay, so Emily's pitch is great, right? Why is it great? Whoops, sorry. Why is it great? It's great because she tells the story in such a compelling way. It's super clear. She's got great energy. You feel something about this story. You can't help but feel something about her story. And so it really is this wonderful pitch that moves people. She also does a lot with her body that's interesting when she kind of does this to show her product. That's also like making a muscle, making a strength muscle, right? So she's kind of showing and connecting with her body about how these kinds of products really help patients feel empowered. They don't feel like a walking disease. They can feel empowered in strength, not because they have a terminal illness or a recurring illness that they need medical equipment to handle. So she does both with what she says, how she says it, and her body communicates this really great story about her company. And I've seen her pitch, I don't know, 20 times. I've never seen someone pitch as often as she does. As you can tell, she's a pro by now. And she always wins. She's a ringer because she is really able to combine her story into this very compelling emotional idea that people really want to learn a lot about. So um, the point of showing Emily's example is this idea that stories sell. Really getting people to lean in is about telling a good story. And if I learned anything in my time as a marketer, I was a marketer for most of my career, both in startups and in consumer packaged goods companies, large consumer packaged goods companies. And over the years, we learned to storytell in our advertising. Well, pitching is very similar to marketing in the way that you're trying to convince somebody to do something, you're trying to be persuasive and get them to change their behavior. So it makes sense that trying to create an emotional connection with your audience through your story is a really effective way to sell your pitch and sell yourself and your idea. So here are a few ways that I've sort of thought about how you make that story really sell and connect to your audience in an emotional way. And that emotion could be really any kind of emotion. It doesn't have to be love or fear. It can be, peace of mind. It could be freedom. It could be any kind of word that kind of conjures up an emotion in people and makes them feel something. So this first one about choosing words that connect to emotion. An example that I use here is Ring Doorbell. So hopefully you've all heard of Ring Doorbell. It's a online video doorbell, and you put it in place of your regular doorbell, and you work it off an app on your phone, and you can see who's at your front door no matter where you are. You don't have to be home. You can even talk to them through the doorbell. And when Jamie Siminoff, the inventor of Ring Doorbell, first invented it and first started talking to people about it, he was like, yes, I'm building an online doorbell. And people really didn't care. They were like, why do I want to see who's at my front door? I can just walk there. And they didn't really understand, what was the underlying reason why the world needed this thing. And in fact, he even went on Shark Tank to sell his online video doorbell, and he got no takers. None of the sharks invested in him. Shortly after that, he started talking about his video doorbell and his company Ring as being about neighborhood safety. Now think about that. Those two words pack a really powerful emotional punch. Neighborhood, you think about your street, you think about your front yard, maybe you think about the people on your street, maybe you think about the people in your house. Neighborhood is an emotional word. It has a lot to it. And safety, that's even more of an emotional word, right? People feel something when you say it's going to make them feel safe. It's about safety. So combining those two words really, really, really is a wonderful way to create an emotional connection and get people to care about an online video doorbell. So he really started to plug this idea of neighborhood safety into everything he was doing, whether it was his marketing or how he positioned the product to investors. And it really took off. And, sort of the long story short of it is that Amazon acquired Ring Doorbell for $1.7 billion 2 years ago. So it's one of those great examples of where he found the right words, the right emotional connection to make with the audience that explained his product, yes, of course, but also did so much more. It created this bigger picture, this bigger idea of what his product was about. And so using those kinds of examples in your stories, trying to create that kind of feeling around what you're building is really helpful. The next tip that I use is around employing a show me, don't tell me narrative. So the example here might be something like, let's say you're in a new city and someone tells you should look around the city, and you get on a tour bus and you take a tour of the city and you get all the buildings explained to you and you can see them and sort of experience them. Well, take that experience and juxtapose it to somebody just showing you a map of that city, a flat map of that city, and saying you should go here, 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 and here. Well, that doesn't really help you to get to know that city. And so that's the difference between the show me, don't tell me narrative. It's this idea that allow people to experience it for themselves by the words that you use and the imagery that you create through the story you spin out. The other piece is this idea about metaphors or words that create an image. So I talked about neighborhood safety. That's a great example because it both connects to emotion and it creates an image in your head. But there's also this idea of like using metaphors or examples. So if I told you to go run 100 yards right now, you might not know how far that is really. You might not be able to picture in your head what 100 yards looks like. But if I tell you to go run the length of a football field, you definitely know what that looks like. Most likely. You're picturing the green grass, you're picturing the white lines on the field, you're picturing the stadium, you're picturing the fans. So it's, very easy to say, go run the length of a football field, and you immediately kind of get a sense of what that means. And then the last thing is this idea of taking your listeners on a journey, because it turns out that every great story is really connected to what's called the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a very classic storytelling framework. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the hero sets out on this journey to solve a problem or on an adventure to find something important or to solve a crisis. And the arc of the story tends to look like this, where you get this opening hook where there's a big problem and it's really important that it gets solved. The hero goes on this journey and it ends up at the highest point of the drama is the climax, where the problem's at its worst. And then it ends with a transformation. So in this example, I'm talking about a company called Magnemer, and Magnemer created an ink that consumer packaged goods companies could use on their labels, on their plastic labels, that would allow plastics to be sorted more effectively and efficiently. So this magnetic ink was really going to be about solving the world's plastic problem, which is horrible. We all know that. So he was able to create this really drama around the plastics problem and how bad it is and how all the effects on the planet and why this meant so much to him personally. And he takes the drama up to this idea of like, well, you don't even realize how little plastic is actually getting recycled. You're spending all this time sorting like crazy at your house, but actually it gets to the MRF and it really doesn't get sorted the way you think it is, because they can't separate the different types of plastic that are connected in one beverage bottle, for example. And so then the transformation is, but we have a solution. We have a way to fix this. We can help. And that's the transformation. And then it ends on resolution. And resolution is really the picture of the world as it is now, how it has changed. So the world has changed because we can now sort plastic more efficiently, effectively. We have gotten rid of, half of the plastic problems in the world, and imagine all the ripple effects on our environment that can cause. So ideally, you're going to tell your story using the hero's journey, that kind of arc. And ideally, you're going to tell it something about either the origin of the company, why you created this company, what it means, what that problem means to you, in an individual way. So not in a general way, but really about a person. Either it's about you or about someone that you know that has dealt with this problem or is impacted by this problem. And those are really the most powerful stories, and using those other techniques that I just talked about, creating an emotional connection through your story to your audience. Connected to this idea is also the idea of a unique value proposition. Now, many of you may have heard these words before, what a unique value proposition is, but in short, it's your secret sauce. It's your magic. It's what you do better than anybody else, and it's the reason why people would choose you over any other competitor. And so on this slide, I have a bunch of unique value propositions for a bunch of tech companies you probably know. So an example here with iPhone, when the iPhone came out, it wasn't that it was like all that different in terms of being a phone, right? It still had numbers and you dialed people and you talked to people. But what it did have was this very different user experience, and they called it magical user experience, and how you would feel using it was something that they really talked about a lot as being part of their unique value proposition. And you could see this in how they advertised it, and you could see this in how the different types of products that came after. Well, so that's a great unique value proposition, because what it does is it connects to an emotional or social need that people have, and they might not even know they have it. Oftentimes, the iPhone user probably doesn't even realize how much they love that magical user experience, how attached they are to it. But if you know anybody who's an Apple fan person, they buy all Apple's products because they do love that magical user experience. And so it meets an emotional need for them in the way that they want to interact and look with their tech products. So it's about a why or a how, not a what. And it's really important that your unique value proposition really focus on a why or a how, not a what. It's not a feature of the product. It's not, it has buttons. It is about a benefit in the customer's eyes. What does the customer believe the best benefit is to them? So ideally, what you're doing with your unique value proposition is you're sort of demonstrating it in that show me, don't tell me way. In your story. So it's very apparent by the time you're done telling your story what your unique value proposition is. And then once you really have a unique value proposition that you love, You can use it in all kinds of places. It can be a force behind your marketing. It can be a force behind your company mission. And so it's a really great thing to really understand. And what I find with my students at Babson actually is they'll come up with a unique value proposition and they've only gone so far. And I almost always say to them, can you go deeper? Can you level this up into something even more emotional? And 9 times out of 10, they can. They just have to dig a little deeper. So I encourage you to also do the same thing as you're thinking about your unique value proposition that's in your pitch. Think deeper, think more emotional, think bigger. What is your product really tied to that meets an emotional or social need that people need? And if you think you've gone far enough, try to go farther, because you might find something that's even more powerful to work with. So I'm going to pause for a video. And I want to show you this video because what Esther does in her talk, it's kind of in the middle of her talk, but she's sort of telling her story, and she communicates her unique value proposition in a really powerful way. So I think it's a great example. So I'm going to go here. And she has a company that sells athletic wear for women, but it's not yoga pants and sports bras. It's t-shirts and shorts, really embracing the athlete mindset. Not, you know, she sees her customer as being something very different than the yoga pants and sports bra.
I didn't start playing basketball until I was 15. I couldn't imagine being an athlete before then simply because I wasn't exposed to women's sports. My story is just one example that representation is really important because girls cannot become what they cannot see. So I created Play a Society to change that narrative, to elevate women's sports, and to use sportswear as a platform to define female athlete culture so that seeing women who play sports becomes as common as seeing women who do yoga. And so that t-shirts and basketball shorts become as essential as sports bras and leggings. Thank you.
So I love that encapsulation of what her mission is and her bigger reason for being, and that really is her unique value proposition also. It's this idea that, you know, she wants to show the world that, you know, t-shirts and shorts can be symbolic of female athlete culture. Like, think about that. Like, if you're being super logical, you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. But if you really buy into what she's saying, by the time she's done saying it, and you start to feel something, I get goosebumps when I see that clip, actually. And I think it's really important to understand that she's building that narrative. She's building that unique value proposition right in front of your eyes. And people then become real believers and they lean in. So we're going to go back to my slide deck, and we're going to pause for questions. Danielle, are there any questions?
Don't see anything in the. I don't see anything in the chat.
Does anyone want to raise their hand?
You can hit the little reaction button at the bottom and do your hand raise, or type something in the chat. I will say, Debbie, that I remember the Mighty Well pitch. I mean, that was what, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and I still remember. So there was something really compelling and salient about how she presented that. So it's interesting to see how the product connects with the person.
Right.
So I think that connection is super important.
It's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she does such a great job of telling it in terms that everybody can relate to. You know, who wants to look like a sick person? Nobody. Yeah. And so she tells that in such a way that's so universal, but yet still really emotional.
So we have somebody, Gifford West, is asking, what is the 30-second pitch on YouTube? Is that your channel? Is that something?
Oh, no, that's just something that Emily did. They just take lots of entrepreneurs and have them do a 30-second pitch.
Ah, okay.
So it's not related to Babson.
Okay.
It was just the best version of Emily's pitch that I had recorded.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I think once we hear, now that we're hearing all these great techniques, it's so great to attach it to an example. So I think after this, maybe we could start like our own little library of examples and we could all practice with each other, which would be another fun meeting that we can have as a follow-up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think after this, in our breakouts, after I finish sharing some stuff from the book, we're going to break out in smaller groups and do elevator pitches. So
Mhm.
each of you are going to be asked to give your elevator pitch, your 20-second pitch about your company. So get ready. And this next bit might be helpful. So this is a framework or a tool that I use for elevator pitches. Now, you may know elevator pitches are about 20 seconds long. And like I said at the beginning, an elevator pitch is really just to get somebody to ask the next question. It doesn't have to tell you every single thing. It's just really to generate interest and start a conversation. And you have to be prepared to give your elevator pitch at any time. And it should come out of you really naturally, like a conversational tone. I say it should come out of you as naturally as breathing. You shouldn't have to feel anything different, like you're segueing into some performance. And so I use this template for an elevator pitch, but what it really is a marketing positioning statement. So again, I'm tapping into my marketing background because I do think that it's really salient to the idea of pitching. And in big consumer packaged goods companies, when we're launching a new product, we do a marketing positioning statement like this for every product so we can position it against the competition. But in my mind, I think this is a great place to start developing your elevator pitch. So ideally what you're going to do is you're going to work each of these red blanks up for your own company and string it all together. But once you're kind of really fluent in it and you feel really good about it and you feel really comfortable about it, at the end of the day, you might do it in a different order. You might do it in 3 sentences instead of 1 sentence. You might add something about the business model. So this isn't to say you should stick to this 1 sentence and this 1 sentence only. I'm saying that this is a great place to start to think about all the things that would make for a great elevator pitch. So with target customer, I'm going to encourage you not to talk about it in terms of demographics, but to talk about it in terms of psychographics, attitudes, behaviors. You know, what do you know about your customer that is salient to why you are creating this company? The customer need is really the problem you're solving for the customer. What customer need did you identify? And again, it can be a social or emotional need. It doesn't have to be a functional need. Product name is obviously your product name. Market category is something that you can have a little fun with, actually, because lots of people have made up market categories to better sort of talk about what they do. But your market category is really like the space in which you live. So, you know, what landscape are you part of? The one key benefit is part of your solution. Like, how do you solve this customer need? How you solve this problem? What benefit do you provide? What's key in this sentence is the unlike word. So the unlike word is really where you're now positioning yourself staunchly against everybody else in the category. And that allows you to then talk about your unique differentiator at that point and really hammer that home. So again, the competition, maybe you want to think about indirect competitors or substitutes. Maybe it's not your direct competition that you're most worried about. So be open to using these words in different ways. And again, try and find words that have some extra meaning to them or some extra emotion. So I'll do a quick elevator pitch for my book. So my target customer for my book was first-time entrepreneurs and early-stage founders who feel overwhelmed by the pitching process. And my customer need was to find a way to put it all in one place so that people were feeling like that they could be guided through the whole process easily and felt they had an all-in-one resource they could use. For me, you might think the market category is books, but it isn't for me. For me, it's all the other resources about pitching that there are. There are videos and blog posts and all kinds of articles and Reddit threads and you name it. So for me, my market category isn't book, it's resources, entrepreneurial resources in general. And then for me, you know, I really feel like my benefit and my unique differentiation point is that it has everything you need to know in one place, simply told. So everything you need to know and told in such a way that is compelling, clear, and easy for you to grasp and start working with right away. So hopefully that's a helpful example that I'm making up on the fly. I have pitched my book before, so I guess it's not totally on the fly, but that is a good example of how you could talk about your company in about 20 seconds or less. The 4H framework is really about the investor pitch. Now we're moving on from this 20-second idea to this much longer idea of an 8 to 10 minute pitch where you're really delving into some of the details about your company and how it works. And I discovered that after watching thousands of pitches, and I mean thousands of pitches, I found that the best ones or the most effective ones at capturing the audience followed this 4H framework. And it kind of goes like this. The headline is where you're sort of setting the context. So again, back to brain research, we know the brain craves meaning before details. So it's a really good idea to set the context. A lot of entrepreneurs think that they should like make this big reveal at the end about what their company is about. Don't do that. That's not right. You really want to set people up to be ready to understand what you're talking about. And the headline is a great place to start. You're setting the context. Maybe you're talking about the industry that you're in. Maybe you're adding a little bit about your unique value proposition to come. It's usually a 5 to 9 word phrase that's on your first sentence, on your first title slide. And if you're not using slides, it's something that you sort of say at the very beginning. I'm excited to talk to you today about my startup that is blah. The heart section is really where you're going to tell your story, you know, make me feel something, make me feel an emotional reaction to connect me to what your business does and why I should care. The head is about, you know, tell me how it works. What does it do? How do you make money? How do you find your customers? What's your go-to-market plan? Who is your target customer? All those kind of factual things come into play in the head section. But again, as you describe things in the head section, you should really be thinking about how you keep connecting back to that unique value proposition you've stated before. And then you end with your hope, and your hope is like your big finish where you're going to really inspire the audience and the listeners with your bigger vision. So maybe the pitch up until now has been about what you're working on right now, this product that you're going to launch soon. But the hope is really about this bigger idea. Remember the hero's journey where the world is transformed at the end. The hope is about how the world has been transformed because your company comes to life. So just to show you how this works in practice, I did an example with Airbnb because everybody kind of knows what Airbnb does. So I looked at the Airbnb deck actually from 2009 when they were first going out for investment. And if you remember, the idea of staying with locals was like totally novel. Like people didn't do that. And so they had to really get investors to care about this idea that, you know, seemed really, really crazy at the time. So the actual headline on their first slide was book rooms with locals rather than hotels. So you see how that headline helps me get into the right frame of mind to take in their pitch, right? I know it's about travel now. I know it's about something that's in competition with hotel stays. And then I know that their unique value proposition has something to do with staying with locals. Like, what does that do for me? That's really novel. That's really interesting. I don't know anybody that does that. So now my interest is piqued, but it's piqued in a context. So I'm not sitting there wondering as they're going through their slides, like what the heck the solution is all along. I can listen with an ear to the travel industry, competing with hotels, connecting with locals. And it really helps people grasp what you're saying in a short amount of time. The hard part, I might tell a story. I don't know what story they told, but I might tell a story if I were pitching back in 2009 about I'd saved money for years to go to Barcelona, and I ended up, you know, not realizing that my hotel was overpriced in a touristy district. I wasn't really going to see the authentic parts of Barcelona I had dreamed about for years, you know, really dragged the drama about this uninspired and expensive trip that it didn't need to happen. It didn't need to go that way. In the head part, I would talk about it's an online platform, you know, the renters get a % of booking. We get a % of booking as Airbnb. So that's how we make money. It's a huge market. Budget travelers are in the billions of dollars. And so all those kind of things that have created questions in their mind, I'm going to try and answer in the head section. And then in the hope section, its travel is transformed. The world is a more connected place because Airbnb exists. Now, I'm not really saying anything about staying with locals anymore. I'm talking about the world becoming a more connected place. That's a wonderful vision. That's a wonderful hope for the world that is going to be facilitated by the birth of your company. And boy, don't you want to jump on my train because you want to be part of this. That is an exciting hope for the future, and it really inspires people to want to help you. So hopefully that example is a good way for you to sort of see how this talk track flow plays out. So this isn't necessarily the slides. I'll talk about the slides in a sec, but this is really just a flow for your talk track, because what I don't want you to do is write a script. If your pitch is scripted, it comes off really, really tight and inauthentic and stilted. Whereas if you can get in a conversation flow and really just have these guideposts along the way that you know, like, okay, I've told my heart story, now I got to get into my head, and let the slides also sort of remind you where you're at, it becomes a lot easier to not have to memorize a script and really just get into the flow of your talk track. As far as slides go, you know, I mean, they're a necessary evil of pitching. I would encourage you to go online. There are many sites that offer free templates. I use Canva a lot, canva.com. It is a wonderful, wonderful resource for getting slides that will help you look really professional. It's all templated, it's drag and drop. Try to do your best to make beautiful slides, because your slides say a lot about you as a founder. If your slides are messy and full of errors, people are going to think you're an entrepreneur that's messy and full of errors. And most messy and full of errors entrepreneurs don't get investment. So your pitch deck is meant to be a representation of you. So make sure that you've done the best job possible to make it shine. On this slide, I have generally what you should have in your pitch deck in terms of the types of slides. Some of these slides might take 2 slides to cover, something like, you know, maybe how the business works in the economics and the go-to-market might require more than 2 slides. And I asterisk the idea that the team and the traction. If you have a stellar team that has so much domain experience, or a great network, or awesome connections, you should put that up front. Same thing with traction. If you have some traction, you want to get to that pretty quickly and make sure that people know that you have traction earlier on in your presentation. So I'm going to show you another video of a pitch that I love. It's really great. So take a look at Big Willie and what he has to say in his pitch, and then we'll talk about why it is such a good pitch.
I'm so stressed out trying to plan all of life's celebrations. I mean, I got little Susie's graduation, I got Ted's birthday party, and of course, football season is coming back. I want to plan a tailgating party for that. I wish there was one easy solution for me to order all my party supplies, just as easy as booking an Airbnb. Wait, there is. Party on Demand is your one-stop mobile party supply shop, delivering the party to you in 1 hour or less. We deliver the 3 essential ingredients you need to wow your guests and have an incredible, memorable party. We deliver food, talent, and decorations right to your door. Bam! We make it happen easily with our partnerships from Uber Eats, Grubhub, and Postmates, delivering that tantalizing food that's yummy, yummy in your tummy. In addition to that, our friends over at Amazon Prime are hooking it up with our great, crazy curated party box that's delivered to your door. Plus, we have hooked up over 1,500 incredible talents of dancers, acrobatics, and even your own personal chef from Benihana, Katachi. That's... It all starts with the box. Party on Demand has already partnered with over 35 of the world's largest companies and brands that's going to give you the cool thing. Think of Pinterest meets Etsy, delivered in your box and all exclusive right to your door. Oh man, it's going down. Our app is simple and easy to use. And in less than 5 clicks from your phone, your party is on. With over $251 billion in the licensing and rental industry, we know we're going to disrupt this marketplace, because over 800,000 people celebrate celebrate their birthday in the U.S. alone every single day, not including over 500,000 people that just have a great social and celebration as well. With that, Party on Demand situates ourselves between the sweet spot of affordability and convenience. Now, our revenue model was simple. Nowhere, and I mean nowhere, can you find food, talent, and decor delivered to your door same day for the incredible price, wait for it, $299. Ow! Make it want to shake something. We're asking for $1.5 million in exchange for 15% equity. This will give us a 15-month runway and yield profitably about $7.5 million. Party on Demand was inspired by my father, who passed away from cancer. But before he did, he said, son, celebrate life more often. Whether that's your job promotion or getting an A on a test or even crossing the street, celebrate life every single day. Now you don't have to stress no more or wonder how to put on a really cool party and impress your friends. We can do it for you. I'm Big Willie G, the CEO of Party on Demand, and we're helping you, and your best friend sitting next to you to party on. So
Okay. I can't see all your faces right now, but I hope you're smiling because Willie is the bomb. So why is that a good pitch? Anybody have an idea? You can just shout it out.
Yeah, shout it out, type it in. Yeah, or type it in the chat.
I think he addresses something all of us do on a regular basis, is we are always gathering people together and there are always items that need to be collected. And it's like, wouldn't it be nice to just go click and it's done? Plus his emotion is fantastic. I just love the emotional way he pitches his story.
And to that point, the emotion is appropriate for him, right? He's being his authentic self.
Right.
So if you're pitching a biotech company, you're not going to pitch it that way. But pitching Party on Demand, he is the embodiment of Party on Demand, right? That guy is a party. You want to hang out with him. So that's, you know, another element that you got to think about is like, you want the company to be the best reflection of you, and vice versa. So, you know, being your authentic self and being really genuine in your pitch is important. I mean, did you see the judges' faces? Their faces were priceless. They were smiling from ear to ear and really just enjoying themselves. But it wasn't like a fluffy pitch, really. It had everything. It had a market size. It had how it works. It had how they're going to make money. It had economics. It had go-to-market. It had everything a great pitch has. But you were having such a good time listening to him that you didn't really feel like you couldn't wait for the end of it. You wanted to hear more. You wanted, and you won't forget Willie G, will you? You'll never forget Willie G now that you've seen him once.
Debbie, when did you make this pitch?
This pitch was in 2017 at the Startup Fest pitch competition in Silicon Valley.
How would you react if you made the pitch today when we're in the throes of all, you know, Black Lives Matter? I find it stereotypical and it turns me off a bit.
Interesting.
I think timing is critical. I'm not sure this would go over as well in 2020 as it did in 2017. What are your thoughts?
For me, I don't see it that way. I don't see him stereotypical of anything except a founder that's super enthusiastic about a party company. So I see his shtick is just who he is. I don't feel like he's, you know, pretending to be anything or trying to fill a stereotype. It just happens to be
I
rowdy.
see it very stereotypical, unlike you do. But that's obviously in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah. That is definitely part of it. And, you know, he is taking a risk there that, you know, people will take him seriously enough to give him money. You know, he's asking for $1.5 million. He's not asking for $500. So, you know, he's a serious entrepreneur and he is looking for serious money. So he is taking a bit of a gamble that the judges are going to take that in the right way. But I don't see it as a stereotypical anything for me, but a lot of it, you're right, is in the eyes of the beholder and sort of the filters that people are receiving in.
And Debbie, I see people asking, did he get the money? And it would be great to the extent you know the answer as you show these pitches, what happened next? You know, how are they now?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that perspective. Like,
Okay.
I thought David's question was going to be more like, how can he pitch this in the middle of a pandemic? Nobody's having a party. And of course, can't help that. But did he get the money, or it doesn't even matter he got that contest, but how many of these great pitches turned into great companies? Would love to know.
Yeah, so I haven't checked on Willie G recently. I do know he did get money. I don't think he got the 1.5 million, but he did get money. I haven't checked recently if he's still going. He was going, but I don't know how the pandemic affected him, so I can't say there. But I can definitely check it out. For Esther, who pitched her sportswear clothing business, she is still going, and she's great. She was a professional basketball player in Europe, so she has a lot of great connections, and she's getting a lot of support from professional athletes. So that's been great for her. And then, of course, Emily is doing wonderful. She actually pivoted to make masks in the pandemic and is making her mask business is off the charts, and she's using the same fabric that she used for her pick line cover: antimicrobial, washable, sweat proof, smell proof. So she was able to, as all good entrepreneurs should, pivot in the moment to something that was really relevant based on what she was already doing. So she's still selling all of her other adaptive wear, but masks are now the biggest part of her business at the moment.
And I'm going to agree with Jackie Wheeler, who put the note in. I love that Big Willie gave us a gift of the line, "Celebrate life more often." And it was a clever way for us to kind of embody like the bigger meaning of his message, and to make it even more accessible. Like, it's not just for birthdays that you might have thought about, but celebrate life more often. So it's almost like a gift back to you, even if you never even buy his product, right?
Right.
So,
it's a reminder, right? That we can all sort of relate to, like, oh yeah, we should celebrate life more often.
And I think it was interesting that he used the story and the emotional connection at the end of his pitch, as opposed to bringing you into the pitch through that means.
Yeah, he did tell the story of his dad later, but his opening story was sort of also relatable and emotional. It's football season and it's birthday season and things that, pretty much anybody would realize that they have lots of things in their life to celebrate. And so wouldn't it be great to have someone help you do that?
What I also heard in the beginning of his pitch was simplicity. It's like life is complicated. Let's the KISS method to taking care of all these events that we all have in our lives to celebrate. So I think that was part of his emotional pitch too.
Yes,
I would say anyway. That's what I heard. I bet too. Anyway,
I would agree with that. So I really like that pitch. I think it's super fun, and I think Danielle's idea of collecting good videos of good pitches is a great one. I have a lot at Babson, but they're meant to stay within Babson. But you can find a lot of really good examples of good pitches online, on YouTube, and so forth. So maybe that's maybe you collect all the links on a Google Doc or something like that, Danielle, so that people can share great pitches when they see them, and talk about why they're so great. So I'm going to pause here for questions. Does anybody have a question?
And we're also at the top of the hour, so just we're going to go into breakouts in a few moments. So, but I know, Debbie, do you have more?
I do have more.
Okay.
So I didn't start talking until quarter after, so I plan for more material, but I can wrap it up if you just want to move into the breakouts.
No, that's okay. So tell us more, because I think we could do a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so this next section is about bias. And, in my book, I talk about bias for women and bias for people of color. But with this group, obviously, there's probably some bias around age, right? Potentially you start to see people trying to, put you in a box because you're over 55 and, what kind of entrepreneur might you be? So I think that it's really interesting to think about the way that I counsel my students to handle bias, and women entrepreneurs that I mentor and people of color that I mentor, it's possible that some of these techniques would work for you if you feel like you're finding that there is bias in the conversations that you're having or the pitch that you're giving. And so, you know, the sum total of my approach is called spot it and switch it. And so the idea is get really good at noticing bias. For women and people of color, those triggers are really noticeable once you start to look for it. And there's all this research around prevention versus promotion questions. So a prevention question is around, you know, mitigating risk, and promotion questions are around growth and opportunity. And all the research that's been done, and there's been a lot, shows that women tend to get asked prevention questions way more often than men, and men get asked promotion questions most of the time. And the question you get asked really matters, because what you get asked is what you answer. So if you are asked a prevention question, you will most likely answer with a prevention answer. And prevention answers are about like not losing and mitigating risk and trying to do damage control. And what investors really want to hear about, what they don't realize that they're asking the questions this way. Obviously, I'm sure it's subconscious bias, but they really want to hear about growth and your ideas for growth and opportunity, and, you know, how big it is and how exciting it is. So the data tells us that people who get asked promotion questions raise 7 times more money than people who get asked prevention questions. So it really matters what happens there. And, you know, a lot of this, it happens for women VCs and male VCs asking questions at the same time. So it's not just male VCs asking prevention questions. So we teach our students to look for the difference between promotion and prevention questions and switch it. If they get asked a prevention question, to answer with a promotion answer. But I think for all of you, if you start to feel like you are experiencing some type of subconscious bias because you're over 55 and it's making you uncomfortable, try to really demonstrate the advantage you have because you are over 55 and the unique insights that you have about this particular market. Showcase the opportunity, how big it is. Think about how do you turn it around and make it a positive in the eyes of the funder, and be prepared for that. Be prepared to hear those things and switch it on the spot. And that does take practice. You have to practice Q&A with someone to help you learn how to do that. The other thing we talk about a lot is coachability. And this comes up a lot in the Q&A portion of your pitch, where you know, you've now pitched and you're getting lots of questions about the business. And coachability is this idea that you're open to feedback and other people's ideas, and not be defensive about questions you're getting asked, and answering in such a way, both with your body and your voice and your words, that you are not defensive and that you're open and interested in what the feedback is. So things like, you know, active listening and getting to yes and following up on feedback, all are ways to demonstrate that you are coachable, you're interested in people's ideas and feedback. Those unscripted moments in a pitch, especially in the Q&A session, again, is really showing who you are as a founder. I mean, that's the whole point of a pitch, right? It's trying to see who you are as a founder, particularly in these early stages when investors know that the idea is going to pivot probably multiple times. It's really important for them to get to know who you are. I know a lot of venture capitalists who don't even dive into the pitch until they've had a conversation with the founder about who they are, what do they value, how are they brought up, you know, what do they believe in, so that they can really see who this authentic person is. So the Q&A is actually a real opportunity to demonstrate that you're thoughtful and insightful and thorough, all great qualities in an entrepreneur. So just remember that coachability really does matter, and try to demonstrate it actively, like proactively demonstrate that you are listening. Now, that's not to say that you should take every single piece of feedback that you get in every pitch you take, because if that was the case, you'd bounce around like a ping pong ball. But the idea is that, you know, as an entrepreneur, you're grateful and you value the feedback that you get, but part of being good at your job is to decide what kind of feedback is best for you and your business. So just remember that if you're catching yourself feeling that feeling, and you know what it is, right? It's that feeling in your gut that you're starting to feel really tense about what somebody's saying about your business. Try and catch yourself and maybe have like a trigger word in your head that you don't say out loud, but you say it in your head when you recognize that feeling that immediately snaps you back to being open. So just pick a random word maybe that you can say to yourself in your head that will allow you to take a deep breath, realize you're feeling defensive, and then move into behaviors that demonstrate coachability. Online pitching, you know, normally I would stand up and pitch. I twisted my ankle this morning, but normally when I'm presenting and when you're pitching, you should stand up and do it standing up. Not only does it allow you to project more energy through the lens, it also allows you to breathe better because your diaphragm is open and not crunched over. And it just projects a much more professional image. So if you can, stand up throughout your whole pitch and deliver it looking straight at the lens. It feels weird at first, but it's really about, that's how you're creating eye contact now, is through that tiny little lens. So it's important to talk to it. It's important to use your whole body, but not be flailing around, but use your whole body to create energy, to project through the lens. Also think about your pitch itself. Like what I typically say is that if you're pitching online, you should take your usual pitch, shorten it, take out some topics, but have more slides. So you're switching slides more often, because as you switch slides, that sometimes can get somebody's attention back to the screen. Make sure you know your tech really well. Practice with your tech many times, right before, right after, whenever you can, so that you're ready tech-wise. That's your mic, your camera. Invest in some good lighting. It's not expensive to get some ring lights and some panel lights for your home. Invest in a good camera, invest in a good microphone. None of these things are expensive, and they make a world of difference when you're presenting. And control your background. You know, make sure noise and whatever's behind you looks good and plain and neutral. I was watching a pitch the other day, and the man had a laundry basket in the back. And it was, you know, not front and center, but it was kind of to the side, and you could definitely see it. And it's not, you know, like we all don't have laundry, but I don't want to see it in your pitch. And he should have noticed that it was in the background, because it really distracted me. And then I felt like he wasn't paying attention to details because he allowed that to happen. So make sure your background's neutral. It doesn't have anything you don't want people to see. So that's some points about online pitching. I've written a couple articles about this. I wrote my book before the pandemic. So obviously if I had written it, later and publish it later, I would have had a chapter on online pitching. So I've written a couple of articles that kind of go into more detail here, and they're on LinkedIn. Last couple things is about relationship building real quickly. You know, definitely when you're pitching, whether it's for money or advisors or any kind of help at all, make sure you know who you're meeting with and what their objectives are and what they're trying to accomplish and why they're meeting with you to begin with. Do some research. Do not go into a pitch or any other meeting without having done research on who you're meeting with, so you can connect personally. This is even more important when you're pitching online, because there's very few opportunities, you know, to create small talk. So you got to find some good ways to do that, and find out, you know, what their industry experience is or what other companies they've invested in or worked with before that could be helpful to you, and demonstrate that you did do that research, because they're expecting you to. And if you show up and you start talking about, you know, investing in your company, you didn't do the research to know that they've already invested in a company just like you, that's going to really look bad on you. So do your research, know who you're pitching, know them personally, know what they care about. Maybe you have something to connect on. Maybe you're both foodies, or you both love wine, or you both grew up in the Midwest. Whatever it might be, make it something that you can connect with them on a personal level. And then there are a couple of tactics about, you know, using warm intros to build relationships. Warm intros are important. You can usually get them if you try hard enough. There's usually a way you could work yourself to a warm intro to just about anyone these days. Update emails are a great way to keep people informed about what you're doing. So these are quarterly emails with some of the milestones you've met, some of the milestones that are ahead. The best part about the quarterly email is the ask at the end, where you can just sort of ask the recipients of the email, you know, do you know anybody in HR in tech companies? You know, we want to talk to them about usability. whatever the ask might be for you at that moment, you can ask all these people to help you. And along the way, you're collecting emails. If you haven't started creating your email database for your company, you should do it right now. And every time you meet with someone, say, can I add you to my email list, and put them on the distribution list for these update emails, because maybe they didn't help you in the moment right then and there, but they could come back and help you later if they get an update email with something that they care about. You know, people do read these things. I get tons of them. I read every single one of them, and I always help when I can. And I think generally speaking, people want to help entrepreneurs. I think they really do. And so if you make it easy for them by having a really specific recommendation and an easy way to get in touch with you, they will help you if you can. Offer help. So be helpful. I mean, it's a very small community, the entrepreneurship community, and people get known as helpers or givers or takers, and you don't want to be known as a taker. You want to be known as someone who's helpful to everyone. So even if you're asking somebody for help on your business, always end a meeting with, what can I do for you? Is there anything I can do for you? Or maybe forward them an article that you think is interesting to them later, once you've learned a little bit more about them. Find a way to be helpful, or just show that you're thoughtful about what they care about. And then last, you know, we've talked about it a bunch already, but be authentic. Be your best self, be genuine, because it's going to eventually come out if you're not. And, you know, advisors and investors are all looking for people to get to know and work with and have good chemistry with. So be yourself and be authentic. And so, you know, that's roughly it. I think, you know, one thing that people forget is that once you have a great pitch and a great story, you can use it in tons of different places. It's not just about, you know, getting money. We don't even write business plans at Babson anymore. We write pitch decks, and that's how we communicate the business. You can use it to recruit and onboard new employees. You can use it to help marketing agencies get briefed on your company and what you believe in. You can even use it with some of your first customers, or in sales, you know, using it as the base for a sales deck. It's not instead of a sales deck. Or using it to help you get PR and media attention for your company. So having a great pitch, having a great story has tons of uses. So it's really worth the time and investment to work hard and come up with something that you're excited about. So the book is on Amazon, and there's obviously a lot more in there. If you want to check it out, that would be great. And I'll put the link in the chat. And I will stop talking now.
Awesome. Round of applause for Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. That was amazing. Actually, I'm going to unmute everybody so we can all hear you. Okay, go ahead. Now we can round of applause.
Well, I hope that was helpful.
It was very helpful. It was really wonderful.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
So many great takeaways. Like, let's see, pitching should be fun, not a chore. I love the idea that every time you pitch, you should learn something new about your company, even if it's negative. You know, that was great. Be physical, have a symbol.
I mean, use your body. You know,
yeah.
Nonverbal cues are great. Like, but make it useful, like make it meaningful. Like, don't just wave around for no reason. But like, let's say you're talking about a gap in the market, show a gap. There's a gap in the market. Like, use meaningful gestures to communicate what you're talking about.
Right. So Debbie, if we wanted to pitch to you, would we be able to do that?
I do some office hours each week. I put aside some time for people that want to pitch me, so I can let you know when those are, and you can sign up for a slot if you'd like to.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
And so actually now we'll get to go into breakouts, and you guys can practice on each other. So if you scroll up in the chat, I quickly put Debbie's kind of Mad Lib in there for the elevator pitch. So try using that framework, or if you've already practiced, you know, a 10 to 20 second way to introduce yourself to each other. Bless you. You know, you can do that as well. So what we'll do is we'll go into breakouts. There's about 35 people left. So we'll do 5 breakouts. So each of the steering committee and Debbie will head up a room. So just be a little patient first while we switch some rooms around to make sure that we've got one of us in each of the rooms. But you can go ahead and get started as soon as we break out. We'll do this for about 15 minutes, and then we'll reconvene in the main room just for any takeaways or anything that you want to share with the group. This is a volunteer organization. We're all in it for fellowship and to help each other succeed. So I'm just so excited to see all of you, some new faces, some folks who've been coming to all of our meetings. We are working really hard to continue to bring meaningful content like this, like Debbie's talk. So if you have any ideas for other speakers or topics that you'd like us to cover, this is like, I think, our third in a series of kind of pitching and fundraising and getting your story out there. So we're happy to continue to curate other ideas for other topics. All right. Oh, we still have some people hanging out in breakout room 1. I think there's some people who don't want to leave. That's good.
Hi, well, we're all back.
Oops.
They're coming back. Good.
We cut off Marianne in mid-sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can quickly finish if it's a.
Marianne, does it include augmented reality like Pokemon Go does?
That's exactly it. So it's going to be an augmented reality where you start with, for example, the statue of Lucy Larcombe, and then Lucy Larcombe is going to, there's going to be a little pet, a little animal that's going to tell us the story of Lucy Larcombe, and it will bring us on a treasure hunt. Well, Lucy Larcombe used to live at number 9 West Street down there. So you'll walk to the street where she had her publishing house, and then you'll walk to Faneuil Hall, where she did the big speech about women emancipation. And as you go along, you'll collect chits that will allow you to get to other levels. But what you do at this, so you can do it as a family, you can do it as a group of friends, and it makes you discover the world and makes you understand the world we live in a little better, but using landmarks in a city. So obviously this becomes an exponential proposition, and we would want to have it crowdsourced in the same way you do it with Wikipedia, because everybody knows something that you don't, and it's impossible to garner all those stories. So it would create a template in which you can fill out, you know, the story you want to tell about, you know, your area.
Cool.
Wow, we only saw the second half of that pitch, but it sounds really fascinating. Treasure hunts and adventures and stories. So, so good. So how did that feel? Like, just to kind of just, you know, introduce yourself, but do it in a way where you're pitching your company using Debbie's great formula.
Well, we didn't get to everybody, but
okay.
we had some really good presentations. What about everybody else?
We in our group, we didn't get there because one of our number was in a job search mode, and what we talked a little bit about is the relevance of this same approach to different contexts, including job search.
Yeah, pitching yourself. I mean, you're a product at the end of the day, and having a good pitch about who you are and what you're about is super important, particularly in a job search.
Yes, and what could be more differentiating than making an emotional appeal to the company you're trying to get hired by? So that was a big point, I think, Debbie, that came out of your talk.
And if we're not all products, maybe we at least all have a unique value proposition to present in pitching ourselves, which is a great thought. And I thought of that too when someone in the breakout group kindly asked me if I had a pitch, which I didn't come in with. And I thought, oh, I should have had one about myself, because that is a takeaway for us all here. We have maybe 20 minutes to tell our 20 seconds rather, sorry, to tell our story. And it's good to be ready.
Yeah.
It might be a critical partner, somebody who can really help us in whatever we want to do next. So thank you, Debbie. It was really inspiring.
Such a great point, Mary. I mean, it's really awesome if you can tell the story of you quickly and get people to ask the next question. Again, it's always about just getting people to lean in and engage in conversation.
Yeah, it's your personal branding.
Right.
And I love what you said, Debbie. You know, what is my unique value proposition?
Yep. What's your secret sauce? What's your magic mojo? We all have it.
Right. Jerry, any insights from your breakout?
Yeah, we had, I think, about 6 or 5 people. Everybody talked about their idea, And, we talked a little bit about what would be the benefits of the organization of participating in what we're trying to put together here in the over 55. And, I think we had a positive response. I can see that the people in our breakout room, almost all of them signed up on the chat and indicated what they'd be interested in doing. But I think it was beneficial. I think people felt comfortable talking about it, which is, I think, one of the first steps. You can't be afraid. You got to put yourself out there. And I think we achieved that in our breakout room, and I look forward to seeing all the people in the breakout room at our next meeting.
And one of the thoughts about a next meeting might be, it's hard, I think, to come up with an effective pitch, particularly as short as 20 seconds, without some thought. Wasn't it Mark Twain who said, if I had extra time, I would have made this shorter, something like that.
Had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter.
There you go. Thank you. And, it may be that we follow this with an opportunity for people to demonstrate, the benefits of their sort of using this process and perfecting their pitches. Just a thought.
Great. And a reminder that Jerry gave us, everyone put into the chat any other ideas that you have for future meetings that we can organize and offer.
All right. I just put up a poll in the moment. So would you want us to host another meeting where really we're just all practicing our pitches for the full meeting and getting feedback from one another? We can do that in small breakouts and larger group settings. I'm getting a lot of yeses.
Great. And I think feedback and getting that feedback would be a really good way to build on what we've learned today. And maybe even have a couple of outside people to give that feedback in every breakout room.
All right, well, we've got just about everybody answering the poll, and I'm happy to say, I'm going to end the poll. We have 100% share results.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
We're unanimous.
All right, I think we have the subject for meetup number 8. So we look forward to seeing you guys at the next session. And I'm going to take a risk here. Gosh, I don't know how to put up this next poll. Well, actually, we'll do it at the next meeting. We are also, one of the things we talk about at the steering committee is now that we've had a number of these events and we're really on a roll, we had over 85 people registered for today. So, we'll be sending around the video of this recording. We've recorded all the previous events as well. And we're growing, and we're actually growing beyond Boston where we had started, because with COVID, one of the benefits, not benefit, but one of the nice outcomes, I should say, is that we've been able to grow beyond our borders and have lots of people from all over the country and the world actually be interested in tuning in to the Founders Over 55. So this club could really go interesting directions. It's kind of up to us to how much effort we want to put into that and how much we want to, how often we want to meet and what we want this to be. So, so right now we're kind of on like this monthly cadence. And we'll just kind of keep going as long as you guys are excited about it. But it does mean that, generating revenue is a big part of the strategy so that we could actually formalize and pay for some operational support. And that depending on the level of funding, that could also help the size of our dreams and how big and bold might we want to take some of the programming. So we as a committee have been noodling some standalone programming for potentially like some real deep dive roundtable feedback where we would curate a group of mentors and be kind of like your board for a day. And we're thinking that might be an interesting revenue generating idea. And then sort of standard sort of membership options. So I'd love for you all to just give some thought to, let's say we meet monthly and it's kind of like this where we have some guest speakers and we'll hang out with each other. We'll, be on combined mailing lists. What would you be interested in paying for that kind of membership? An annual fee, a monthly fee, what price point feels right? And then the third revenue generating, of course, is sponsorship. So if any of you are connected with any organization that you think might be a willing sponsor, that'd be interested in, you know, having their brand associated with the work of the Founders Over 55, maybe they're interested in aging and healthy aging, maybe they have a product or service that could help entrepreneurs, or maybe they have a certain point of view about just, you know, innovation in general or community development in general. So please introduce, make a warm introduction to Debbie's point, and we'd love to have that conversation. So we will talk more about that at the next one. So before we sign off, thank you again to Debbie.
Oh, yes.
Very appreciative. And if there are any other kind of final thoughts from the fellow steering committee members, or for those of you who are hanging on here.
Just thanks to everyone. It was a great meeting, and look forward to the next one. Thanks, Danielle, for keeping us all going strong.
Yeah,
I have another thought. Oh, excuse me. Yes, thank you very much for organizing a terrific meeting and a terrific group, Danielle. I just had another thought of, and that is if somebody lands funding, maybe an expectation should be X amount to agency, whatever this agency 55 plus.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll put that on the table. That's fascinating, right? Because that, in a way, I like that incentive structure, right? Like, and it's also the way to give back. As Debbie said before, be a giver, not a taker, right? So, so I think in many ways that could be interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We do that at Babson, Danielle. We have a founders fund where our founders can gift a portion of their personal equity to Babson that upon a liquidity event turns into cash to the college. So it's for people who really want to give but maybe don't have money right now, but then when they do, they can make a gift to the people that help them make it come true.
Well, thank you very much. This was really wonderful. Thank you.
I'm madly in love with that idea, Debbie, and I would love to talk with you more about that.
Sure, sure.
Okay, yeah, okay.
When do you, how often do you meet? Once a month or roughly, or?
So roughly once a month, and we've hosted our previous meetings through the Venture Cafe Thursday night gathering, right? Because the Venture Cafe has access to 25,000 innovators, so we thought it would be a great way to really just for awareness building and invitation and so forth. But because that's only Thursdays, we were kind of locked in. So now we've decided we'll do a combination. We'll do Thursdays once a quarter potentially with Venture Cafe, and then we'll meet as frequently as this group has energy for and who has volunteers for, because we need volunteers to help with event production, you know, outreach, curating speakers and content. So Jackie, I know you do event work. So if you're interested in helping out on that, let us know.
Mm-hmm. And Debbie, could I ask you a question? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Does Babson have any type of an internship program? I would love to try to get an intern.
Well, if you have an intern job description, a formal job description, I can get it in the hands of our Career Development Center, and all jobs, whether they're interns or part-time or full-time, are all posted in Handshake, and that's where the students know to go look if they're interested in finding an internship. So if you have something formal written up, I can get it in the hands of the right person, and they'll tell you how to create an account on Handshake, and you can post as many jobs as you want.
That'd be great.
I was just thinking, Debbie, I'm pretty sure Babson probably has this. I've worked in higher ed at Northeastern and Harvard, and I also did my MBA at 50.
Wow. That's so impressive.
I hope you don't mind me saying Northeastern, but a lot of the times the students have, what do you call them? They're little groups that advise, well, mostly nonprofits maybe.
Like consulting projects?
Consulting projects, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, we have that program.
I don't know if that would be helpful or a way to, would be useful to weave into what this group is doing.
Yeah, so we do have that. They're called McPhees at Babson, and you get a consulting team of Babson students. They have it at the undergrad level and the MBA level, where they'll do a consulting project for a company. Last I checked, they had more companies than students, but that could have changed because that was probably a year ago.
Debbie, what is done at Babson in the area of social entrepreneurship?
We do a lot with social entrepreneurship. We actually have our own center for social innovation and entrepreneurship. It's run by one of my colleagues. Her name's Cheryl Kaiser. She's dynamite. She's a really well-known thought leader in the social entrepreneurship space. And so we work collaboratively, obviously, but they also do a whole lot of other stuff around social innovation and social entrepreneurship with big companies and helping our students get really interesting projects in that space. And, really spreading the idea around, one of the ethos that Babson is based on is this idea of creating companies that create social and economic value simultaneously. And so the idea is that as we're teaching them to build companies or be leaders in big companies, that they're considering not only the commercial purposes of the company, but the social values that they stand for. It's a big
My friends works in the family, in your family. I'm trying to think.
Family entrepreneurship. Yep.
Yeah, and I've met the director there.
Yeah,
well.
We have 5 centers actually for entrepreneurship. We have mine, which is sort of about founders. We have family entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, female-led entrepreneurship, and what's the last one that I'm forgetting? Global healthcare entrepreneurship.
Nice.
And so, Debbie, we'd love at some point to talk about the 50-plus entrepreneur. Right?
Yeah.
So
well, that has been, a
interesting
thread for us.
To just think about some kind of, curriculum or.
Yeah, we'd love that.
I think I just lost you.
I can still hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay.
That's a great idea, Danielle. Fabulous.
Yeah, we did a hackathon on aging 2 years ago with students, and it was a lot of fun. So, they came, a group came to work with us. It was a woman from the state government, I think.
Probably Robin Lipson, I think. Yeah.
And, proposed some ideas, taught the students a little bit about the aging space and what are some opportunities. I mean, there's an enormous amount of opportunity in this space. You think it would light these kids up. The amount of money to be made and impact to be had, coming up with innovations in this space. So that was really fun. And I think it's important to do the education part with it too, to really show them where the innovation could exist.
Right.
Now, have any of your students, have you recommended The Longevity Economy by Joe Coughlin, who you probably know at the MIT Age Lab?
No, I haven't. I don't know it.
He's kind of a rock star in that space. I'm sure Danielle knows him.
Great.
And, yeah. Joe
Coughlin. And I'm also thinking.
Wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Good to see you, David. Another thought, it's kind of another thread is founder matchmaking, right? Where we talk a lot about, the club Founders Over 55 was really an attempt to be kind of a signal like against ageism in entrepreneurship, just kind of shake, there's a counter narrative, if you will. But also we hear loud and clear that people want intergenerational, multi-generational team building opportunities. And there's so much that we can learn from one another. So it strikes me that as you've got founders, Debbie, that are emerging at the college level and the grad school level and so forth, that might be interesting, like co-founding opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So like what might that look like to have co-founders that are, several generations apart or years apart?
It's pretty interesting, actually, the dynamic that gets created. We actually had a team like that in our summer venture program, which is our top accelerator program at Babson. We had a team that had an undergrad student paired with an entrepreneur who was over 55 who had an incredible invention. And he had looked for somebody to make the business side of it come to life because he wasn't a business person, he was an inventor. And they hooked up and they make carbon neutral fiber that make exceptionally hard, sustainable materials. So they make surfboards and helmets and cars, and it's a really interesting company and a great invention. And they were a terrific pair. I don't know how to facilitate that in a way, but we could think through that.
I think that would be something, again, that would be kind of something really meaty that we would love to take on at the Founders of 55 Club, like create some kind of product, if you will, or service that is scalable, and it's something that we could, could have momentum and measurable outcomes, right? And this could be great co-funding opportunities, but also really just building great companies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's as simple as starting with a database of, companies that have great ideas or inventions that are looking for a business person to help push it forward and, offer up those opportunities. I have plenty of students who come to the Blank Center who want to be entrepreneurs who don't have ideas. And so,
I know someone who created a platform to do just that, to connect older and younger entrepreneurs. He had to drop back. This was a couple of years ago. He had to drop back, but I don't know whether he's still involved in some way or would be willing to talk with us about maybe adapting what he was trying to do earlier to this.
Who is that? If you don't mind saying.
Jim Sugarman.
Jim Sugarman. Yes. Okay. 4Gen something or other. Yeah. I wonder if it was a personal thing that he dropped out, or if the idea itself kind of flamed out.
But he was doing it with his daughter, so it was the effort itself was intergenerational. And I don't remember the details of the reason he dropped back, but
I've met him actually, and I just an FYI, at 6:30 tonight there's an intergenerational symposium that maybe some of you are attending. Joanne Montpere, I think it is, at LaSalle.
Joanne Montpere.
Thank you. Who I've met as well several times, and
Encore Boston Network.
Oh, right. I'm sorry, Doug. You can talk about it far better than I. I'm going to plan to attend that. But I think intergenerational is a very interesting area because that's the workplace. I mean, you're seeing, 4 generations at this point in the workplace. It's hard to believe, but I was talking to someone who I said, "Oh, you live in Hingham," and I said, "Do you know any Wheelers there?" And she said, "Yeah, I know Nick Wheeler," and I'm drawing a complete blank. Turns out she's 25-ish, and she was talking about one of my great nephews. Oh. I mean, just to show you, it's just, anyway, I'll be quiet, but it's sort of crazy.
I have to go.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
run. I'm sorry, I told you I had to leave, so I feel bad, but
don't feel bad. No.
Hey, it was great meeting you all. I had so much fun with you today. Thank you for inviting me.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Debbie. Thanks so much. And actually with that, I think we'll officially close this. It's so funny because we're, at the steering committee, we're always like, how long should we make the meetings? How short, how quickly, how much time in the breakout rooms? And so when we have guest speakers, we tend to obviously bias towards having a lot more time with the guest speaker and maybe less time with the breakouts. Team, we'll talk next time, maybe allocating more time for breakouts and not have a guest speaker, because I think it's great when people get to know each other as well. So,
and Danielle, you're so creative. You really are.
Oh, thanks.
You really are. It's really a gift.
Well, I'm inspired by all of you.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.